So, this is Sir Richard Francis Burton. And this is also Sir Richard Francis Burton. He spent most of his storied career working for the British government, and his many exploits included being the first Westerner to make the Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca, something he did dressed like this, and being the first person to translate the Arabian Nights into English, something he did dressed like this. For my thesis, I read some, though certainly not all, of the 80 works of poetry and nonfiction he wrote during his life. And the impression I was left with was that his allegiance was not entirely with the British government. He could be this proper British man with a book and a mustache, but he was also entirely comfortable being this man who walked among Islamic societies with total ease, and his presence there was not remarked upon. So he had one foot in Victorian British society, and the other in what was then called the Orient, which was, in popular imagination, a more mystical, spiritual place. And this gave him a certain amount of authority in England, because he was somewhat outside British society, and therefore able to critique it. However, he couldn't do this publicly, because they were the ones giving him a paycheck. So the place we most clearly see this dual authority is in a poem he wrote called Stone Talk, which he published under layers of pseudonyms. In the poem, a Hindu Brahmin, or holy man, castigates a British professor named Dr. Polyglot for everything he, and therefore Burton, thinks is wrong with British society, starting with the colonial experiment. This is something that Burton had a lot of reason to know about because he was a colonial administrator. The Brahmin goes on to really humanize people of the Middle East and Africa, something that Burton was able to do because at times he was one. He didn't buy into Orientalist tropes, stereotypes that I'm sure you would all recognize today. They show up in everything from the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie True Lies to the Disney movie Aladdin. Burton also, in this poem, argues against the idea that any single religion has a monopoly on truth. This is something he was able to do because he didn't reject any religion that wasn't Christianity, and which he had the authority to do because he was also that man who had traveled to these other places and really embraced other religions. During his lifetime, he publicly lauded Islam, something which shocked Victorian society. Richard Burton was both of these men, and he was somewhere in between, which sometimes put him in a difficult position, but it was also something he really used to his advantage. Thank you.